Well, when is it too early to give up on a player? Does it make a difference if this player is a former first-round draft pick? Yeah. Of course, we're talking about Trevor Penning. He is the lead discussion of today's show. Also, now that the combine is over, what do we think about Malik, Nabers, Brian Thomas? Where are they going in the draft? They're starting to shoot up a little bit if you look. Although they were kind of high already, they're really moving up now. And, of course, we have to talk about Caitlin Clark. Does she really measure up to Pistol Pete Maravich? Plenty to talk about, and we're going to do it with Fox 8's Garland, Gillen coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? Hello to my friends elsewhere, everywhere out there who are already in football withdrawal. Yes, just one game over the past 5 Sundays. But the good news is there are only 26 more, count them, 26 more Sundays without real football. You can do it. We're here to help you. I promise it's going to happen. This is Dattitude, episode number 210 for a Monday, March the 4th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry. Whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of this new show that we have. We're doing Dattitude a little bit different. In case you haven't noticed, we're doing everything live as of now. We'll see how that goes. You can join in by typing your comment or question on YouTube, Facebook, or on X/Twitter. If you're listening after the fact or have us on your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, you can send in a comment via email at jderry@theadvocate.com or on X or Twitter. You can find me at Jim Derry Jr. or on YouTube at Dattitude Pod. And a reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You see, these are all things that I never had to do before either. Say all these things. I didn't say them a whole lot. I probably was supposed to, but I didn't. Also, real quickly, if you want to sponsor the show, we're going to be having sponsors soon. So just email me at, what is my email address? Jesus, that's what we're doing this morning. jderry@theadvocate.com. I'll be glad to talk to you about that. And in fact, I had a couple this weekend. Nick Braden of Evangeline Services, I really thank you for your note. We're going to be talking to him soon about some advertising possibilities. But today, Garland, Gillen of Fox 8 is about to come on to the show. We already have some comments in the queue. I have a comment on Twitter that I want to get to. So I'm going to bring on Garland in just a moment. But today is a jam-packed show talking about Trevor Penning and whether what do we think of Trevor Penning? Is it time for this? Look, the Saints aren't going to give up. They basically said so the other day. They weren't just giving you smoke and mirrors. They really are going to keep Trevor Penning. But what do you do with Trevor Penning? If it was up to you, would you give up on Trevor Penning? The good news is, and we're going to talk about this part with Garland, he's still on his rookie contract, got 2 more years of his rookie contract. Do they keep him at tackle? Do they move him to guard? Do you draft a tackle? Do you get one in free agency? Where do you go with all that? So that is kind of how we're looking at today's show. We're going to, from the Saints aspect on the show today, we are going to focus on the Trevor Penning aspect and the tackle part of it. So that's coming up. Malik, Nabers, Brian Thomas. I've been looking. I can't believe how far these guys have shot up. One of the mock drafts I've seen has Nabers at number 5 already. So, I think that's going to be a little high. I don't think he's going to go that high up the chart. But Garland Gillen is he's the LSU guy, right? Besides covering the Saints on a regular basis as well, he's at all the LSU press conferences. He is there. Gabe says he thinks Thomas will be better than Nabers in the NFL. I do too. And good news for Gabe Henderson is one of the mocks I saw this morning has Brian Thomas going to the Houston Texans. So that would be a big get for them. And almost every mock that I've seen so far has Brian Thomas going in the top 10. I mean, not top 10, in the top 32 somewhere in that first round. In fact, I saw one that had him at 15. I think that's a little high. I saw a couple, actually, and this makes a lot of sense. Would he go play with Joe Burrow? Would he be a pick that the Bengals are interested in? Man, could you imagine Bryant? I mean, that receiving core already is sick. I mean, they could be phenomenal. Just what are the Bengals going to? You know, that's a team that we're definitely going to look into more as we go through this year in the preseason, through the draft, through the preseason, and not just because they're interesting to hear people here in Southeast Louisiana and a lot of the people that watch the show, although we have people from everywhere. We had some people in Alaska watching us not too long ago. We had people from Europe watching us, watching Larry and I a couple months ago. So, by the way, if you're from another country, type in your comments in the stream. Love to hear that when we have international viewers watch, although most of them are from here. They're Saints fans some kind of way, obviously. But if you're from somewhere else, give us a type. Type it in. We'll put it in. Don Hoffman says, at the 2022 NFL Combine, Trevor Penning logged a 4.89 40-yard dash, 28-inch vertical, and 111-inch broad. That's definitely one of the things we're going to talk about with Garland coming up. Also, Caitlin Clark. And I don't want to talk too much about her right now because not only is she coming on, and this is going to be the third topic of the day, I'm interested to hear what people think as well. But Caitlin Clark, does she deserve an asterisk? Does she deserve the record? Why are we even putting Caitlin Clark and Pistol Pete kind of in the same spiel? That being said, I have an interesting take on that, but she's also the subject of my extra point. And if you weren't with us on Friday, we have a new segment. It's really not a new segment. It's an old segment that I brought back from my Black and Gold Today days. We can't end with a song anymore because we're on YouTube, copyright infringement, and all that stuff. So anyway, staying away from songs of the day. So we're replacing it with our old segment for Black and Gold Today, and it'll be the extra point, which is either a going back in time. Friday we went back in time to 2006, I believe, when the New Orleans/Oklahoma City Hornets had a night of ineptitude. They scored 8 points in both the third quarter, fourth quarter. Is an NBA record, by the way. Least amount of points scored in a half, 16. I think they were something like 5 for 34 that night. But those are the sorts of things we're going to do. It could be a shout out. It could be an opinion that I hadn't really talked about. But anyway, I have an interesting perspective in the extra point today about Caitlin Clark and where she would be if they use the NCAA used the same rules from 1970. So I don't want to give that away just yet. Where would Caitlin Clark rank, next to Pistol Pete, had she played with the same rules that they used back in 1967 through 1970? Let's just say it ain't close. But teams play today. I mean, back in 1967, 1970, the NFL only had 14 games. Do you take that away from her? I mean, she did break the record. She's using the rules that she has. I mean, does that change anything for you? It's an interesting perspective. I'm not sure how you look at it. These are things that I would like to get your comments on, because these are things that I want, especially LSU fans. If you're anywhere near the age that I am, and you want to, this is an important topic to you. This means something to you, because I know it does. It means things to a lot of people. It means different things to different people. And I know that people get their feelings hurt when you talk about Caitlin Clark, but is it because, try to take yourself out of the situation, out of the LSU equation. If you weren't an LSU fan, how would you feel about it? Gabe says he doesn't think it should be taken away from her. It's circumstances out of control, like playing in Major League Baseball steroid era. Context is needed. And I'm not an asterisk kind of guy. Travis says things are kind of tough out here, especially this time of year. So he's gifting. Oh, okay. This is what happens when I don't read comments first. I should read. Sorry, Gabe. I screwed up. Got to read the comments before I just show them on the screen here. But, Caitlin Clark. So we are going to spend a lot of time on her, but We're going to bring Garland in just a minute. As soon as he gets in the green room, we'll bring him in. We're going to talk about Trevor Penning. You know what? I'm just going to put the Trevor Penning slide up on the screen because I want to get to this part of the show. I'll get to the breaking news when Garland comes on. We have breaking news this morning in the NFL if you haven't seen it. So we'll wait for that as soon as Garland gets in the green room and put him on. But Trevor Penning, again, look at that last note. 2 years remaining on his $1.7 million per year salary. All right, so he's only going to cost the Saints, I think it's 1.6 against the cap this year, 1.8 against the cap in 2025. So you're not going to do anything with him. You're going to keep him, but do you move him? Do you put him do you try to put him at tackle? I mean, at guard. Do you try to put him at guard? Can he play guard? Is he too big? Andres Pete is the same size and he's been a guard. And Andres Pete, by the way, who played probably had his best season. Let's see if Garland, I don't see his face in there, but what do we have? Garland, you there? Sound only?
Yo, you can hear me. Let me see.
We can definitely hear you.
All right. So I love problems on a Monday morning there.
It's Monday morning. Absolutely. It's Monday morning problem.
My computer had no audio upstairs, so now I'm in the main studio here. Let me see if one of my guys can.
While you're working on that, I'm going to put a slide up on the screen anyway that's going to cover our faces because we have breaking news this morning for those who haven't heard. Mike Evans signs a 2-year, $52 million contract to remain in Tampa Bay. So before we talk about the Saints anyway, and they can't see us anyway as I have this slide up, but I want to get your thoughts on Mike Evans. And this is kind of a surprise to me, not so much now. It's just not a surprise. But if you would have asked me like 3 or 4 months ago if there was a chance Mike Evans was going back to Tampa Bay, I would have told you out of your mind.
Yeah, well, he's the money is there. I mean, we're looking at it.
Wow,
what was it?
No kidding.
35 million.
52 million is what's being reported. 2 years, $52 million.
Yeah, and what 35 million of it's guaranteed.
Exactly.
That is a phenomenal payday for Mike Evans. And maybe this says to Mike Evans, with him re-signing with the Bucs, is that Baker Mayfield, they're already in negotiations to get him back. Mike Evans had a strong season with Baker Mayfield. I don't think if they had some other guys that were in the mix at quarterback and it wasn't to Mike Evans' liking, I don't know if he would re-sign. I think there's some understanding maybe between Evans and the Bucs that Baker Mayfield is going to be possibly his quarterback next season.
Well, and exactly. That's actually part of it. I mean, I think we're all surprised at how well Baker. I remember talking about this with you on Final Bet back in August. And I was making fun of the Bucs for signing Baker Mayfield, but I was wrong. I mean, Baker Mayfield was outstanding for what they got out of him for the contract that they signed him to, and assuming they get him back, and all signs point to he is going back to Tampa Bay. How much does that have to do with Mike Evans going back there?
Yeah, no, this is all sounding good for the Bucs. I mean, you get Mike Evans. You're going to get possibly Baker Mayfield back. I mean, they got other guys though that are also possibilities they need to re-sign. And Devin White, Antoine Winfield Jr. This is going to be interesting, to work with. With all these moving parts there. I'm also trying to get you video here too. So I'm doing two things at once here. I don't know why it is.
There you go. Now
I hit the stop cam there, so
we'll get you on. We'll get you on as we go along. So those who can't see, this is Garland Gillen of Fox 8. He is on with us this morning. I'm going to be on his show on Thursday.
Yeah.
So, see how it works in this business? We just kind of like do each other favors. That's how it works. All right. So Mike Evans staying with Tampa Bay, and as Gabe said, we're talking about Baker Mayfield, he reportedly won't take a quote-unquote hometown discount, which I think is funny because he's not from Tampa. I mean, he's only played there for 1 year. I mean, it's not really wouldn't really be a hometown discount anyway, but we'll see. I mean, how many people are going to be lining up to sign Baker Mayfield anyway? Look, I know he had a surprisingly great year last year, but let's don't get cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He wasn't that great. All right, let's move on and talk about the Saints, which is what a lot of people want to hear here. And we're going to dive into our topic with the Saints today is Trevor Penning. And kind of got into it a little bit. And some of the numbers that I find interesting, there are a couple of them actually, Garland. And look, he's still on his rookie contract. He's not going anywhere this year or next year. He would have to be god awful, and that they just don't want to waste a roster spot on him. That's how bad he would have to be for him not to be here the next 2 years. But that being said, I think it's interesting that can you turn him into something else? Can you turn him into a guard, or can he be salvaged at tackle? Are the Saints going to go and try to draft one?
Well, I will say this: it's Nick Saldiveri is possibly one of those guys, that you would maybe get to try to start possibly at left guard, and then maybe you get left tackle. You try to re-sign Andres Pete. I don't think that Trevor Penning is going to be a starter, but I think you bring him back, and that's I think he's still a work in progress there.
There you go.
Hey, you know what? Hey, come back in here. Come here. Here we go. Rob Krieger. There we go.
There's
right there. Rob Krieger, nice and quietly helped me out there.
Well, that's because Rob knows what he's doing, and your technology.
Rob does know what he's doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Once my computer upstairs frazzled, I got frazzled there. But Rob Krieger, as usual, another save there. So now you can get. All right, now I feel much better. I can fully focus now. The video's there.
I'm sure the fans out there are super thrilled too that they can actually see you as well.
So, but keep going on this. I don't think Penning they see as possibly a starter in 2024. I think that Nick Saldiveri and Andres Pete, you try to re-sign him. But I also think, Jim, that they're going to draft a left tackle in this upcoming draft. They're talking about being the deepest offensive line class ever in the NFL. So I think they're going to go that route too.
I think if they don't draft a tackle, left or right, I don't care. Just draft a tackle. If they don't draft a tackle in the first round, we're doing another draft show, second straight year here on NOLA.com. Zach Ewing and I are doing a draft show. And if people want to see me go off, I know a lot of people watch this show or listen to the show just to see if I'm going to go off on any particular day. I promise you, if they don't draft a tackle in the first round of this draft, I'm going to go off. I mean, I get edge rusher again. That's still a need, but they have got to draft a tackle. I know they whiffed on this last one with Penning, but there are about 3 out there. Drafting 14th is a big difference, I think. Penning was drafted 19th. I don't even know that you can go. I don't even know if the Saints can. No one can go wrong. There's going to be at least, I think the top 3 tackles are all super worthy of starting right away, and I think the Saints just have to jump in there.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right, Jim. You talk about like edge rusher, defensive end. You're going to have Cam Jordan on one side. You got Carl Granderson on the other. And then, Peyton Turner, you pray to the injury gods that he finally can come back healthy. Same thing with Isaiah Foskey. And then you also got Tano Passanio. So you got 5 guys at defensive end. I think that's more somebody you get in free agency. I don't know if they're going to get one of the big-time defensive ends there, but I think they're going to go in free agency and get one of those guys. And then I think that they should focus on offensive lineman, a possible starting offensive lineman in the NFL draft, especially in round 1 or round 2.
And Penning, you look some of the stats on the screen. He's only started 6 games. 2 years now. Granted, he was injured for most of his first season, but to only start 6 games, they finally pulled the plug on him this year. Played in 23 games total. But you look at that ranking, and that jumps out at me. PFF's ranking 80. They rank 81 offensive tackles in the NFL. He was 65th, and honestly, I'm surprised he was that high.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. They just gave up on him. They threw him in there, probably rushed him in a little too fast there. But you still have James Hurst under contract. I'm intrigued to see what Andres Pete's going to get on the open market. But as a left tackle, he was pretty solid for the black and gold. The right side of the line looks set, though. Ryan Ramczyk has been dealing with some injury issues there. I think he's going to be just dealing with these.
For sure.
Yeah, I think he's going to be dealing with these injuries for the rest of his career. So that's another thing that's a little concerning. But I mean, in the middle, you got Eric McCoy, and then you got Cesar Ruiz, who I thought had a comeback season in 2023. So the right side's good. I mean, we hyped up Nick Saldivari all through camp, and then he got injured. And so on the left side, it's like some question marks there. Do you want to go James Hurst again? Do you re-sign Andres? So there's some moves there to be made, but they got a whole, a new offensive line, coach coming in. They got a new OC, so maybe it's a whole different blocking scheme. Maybe it's more, more of conducive for Trevor Penning to do good this year.
You look at the rankings from last year, and as bad as we talk about this team, the numbers don't show that they were that bad, but then you forget that they had a schedule that was not only the easiest in the NFL, but maybe historically easy for this team, and a once in a lifetime kind of schedule. And now it's going to get a lot harder. So you take these numbers and you put them against better competition, and instead of being the 14th ranked offense, you're probably somewhere 18 and 20 defensively, same thing. And so there's no question. Everything starts. I know there are a lot of people out there who don't love Derek Carr, and that's fine. But whether you do or don't, he's going to be here for at least 2 more years, probably 3. They have got to shore up this offensive line. I keep beating a dead horse. But I mean, I think I wouldn't be upset. Like last year, they won the 2 defensive guys up front right off the bat. What's the problem with going with 2 offensive linemen right off the bat? I think that you can't have enough solid offensive linemen. When the Saints were really good with Drew Brees, what was their number one priority besides Drew Brees? Protecting Drew Brees. And they just haven't been able to do that the past 3 years.
Yeah, and you think with Kubiak as the new OC, maybe a little more play action passing will help Derek Carr, not get hit as much.
Right.
I think they're going to talk about doing more motion this season. Quicker 3-step drops and just get the ball out. I think all that's conducive to Derek Carr, staying healthy and not getting hit, and B, I think getting his completion percentage up. And when you do those 3-step drops, it makes it so much harder for the defensive ends to the pin back and knock the daylights out of you. So I think between play action and quick release points, I think that's all going to play in Derek Carr there, because you're right. If they can't figure out this left side of the line, you're going to have to do some different things with Carr to protect him.
As we shift more towards the draft here on the show, still talking about the Saints, and you see that they draft 14th, but I mean, how many of the teams ahead of them? We know that the first 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 teams on this list, they're not going to go offensive linemen. So there's a good chance the Saints, they wouldn't even have to trade up, most likely, to get one of the top 2 offensive tackles in this draft. They're in a great position. I think the Saints are in a great position. It stinks that they finished where they finished last year. I know people are upset about that, but we're moving on. And drafting 14th is a good spot, and you can get what you want there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Joe Alt's going to be available out of Notre Dame.
Probably
I mean,
not.
That's probably not. J.C. Latham might be available though at 14.
Chance.
Yeah, there's a good chance, and that might be one of the guys they look at.
Pronounce the Hawaiian guy's name for me. I can't pronounce his name, but I think so. To me, there are 3 guys that, of those 3 guys, they're not all going to be gone by the time you get to 14. Saints will be in a great position, I think.
Yeah, and Amarius Mims probably is going to be available.
Yep.
I think he had a really strong combine workout. Played for the University of Georgia, so he's got good pedigree. That's another guy. I mean, I know that fans are watching this right now and they're like, "My goodness, another offensive lineman. This is not exciting." But hey, if you want to win right away, I think they're set at least the top 3 wide receivers. Okay. Yes. Could they use another tight end? Because Jawan Johnson's not a blocking tight end. You got Foster Moreau also. But, at running back, I think if they keep Kamara and they got Kendre Miller, you got Taysom Hill, you're kind of set at some of these other spots. And I think that your weak point would be the offensive line. That's where you got to go, because I think at linebacker, it looks like, Demario Davis is still going to be around, and even though he's getting a little older, I think they should bring back Zach Bond. I think he had a good season last year, and you're going to get that guy on the cheap, and and Pete Warner's still back, and then there's other spots that are a bigger need, and I think offensive line is just the top one right now for the black and gold.
And they show that you can do things even with their limited cap space. They'll find a way, and I think free agency is the way to go on some of the things on defense. Mason Jambon has a question off Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. He wants to know, what are we all, as we talk about the draft before we get into Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas, what are we all missing? What are the mock drafters missing when it comes to Michael Penix and Bo Nix, that both have shown that they can be as good as the top three? And I think it's interesting, too. You see Penix falling all the way to, some have him going to Seattle at 16. Why has he fallen so far? Why is Bo Nix somewhere around 20-ish? What makes him drop even below someone, especially like J.J. McCarthy?
Well, I think that J.J. McCarthy is rising, Jim, is because he's a winner. Okay, he was a winner at IMG when he was in high school. He was a winner at Michigan. At Michigan, he ran a pro-style offense with a head coach, and Jim Harbaugh is now in the NFL. So he can step in right away to an NFL offense and not miss a beat. So I think that's why J.J. McCarthy is moving up past Michael Penix Jr. If we're talking about Penix and we're talking about Nix, and you already got the top three quarterbacks, for 6 quarterbacks to go in the first round, that is a massive number.
It really is.
We're possibly looking at that. I think McCarthy is going to be the 4th quarterback off the board, and then Penix on the back end of round 1. He's had his shots. He's up there in age. Same thing with Bo Nix there. And if Penix goes in round 1, I think that's still a strong selection for Michael Penix to get in that round 1, because that things weren't looking as smooth there when he was at Indiana, and then it started heating up again at Washington. Bo Nix the same way at Auburn. I don't know if you're going to get to see all 6 of those quarterbacks going round 1. I think Nix might fall in to round 2, but if Penix gets in the top 32 picks first round, I think that's really strong for him.
I think someone is going to get a steal with Michael Penix. That is my opinion. It's kind of like, I thought when we were talking about Jaden Daniels before, and it looked like before he shot up the draft charts, before he won the Heisman, it was talked about that Jaden Daniels would be like 18, 20-ish, and I was talking about Jaden Daniels being a steal. Well, obviously he's not going to be a steal anymore. He's going to be a top 3, top 4 pick, most likely in the top 3, maybe even in the top 2. But I think Michael Penix is now in that position to where I think his accuracy, I know he doesn't run like a lot of these other quarterbacks run. He's more of a pocket passer. I just think he can be a phenomenal quarterback in the NFL.
No, I'm with you. I think Penix is going to take a little longer. But, the top guys, Caleb Williams, he's probably going to start right away.
Yeah.
If Drake May goes either 2 or 3 to the Commanders or Patriots, I'm intrigued to see if he starts right away. Same thing with Jaden Daniels. You flip-flop those two, because I think they're going to go 2 and 3. Everything's pointed that way. So some of these guys are going to be ready to roll right away. Maybe it's going to be conducive for Penix to have success, to sit out that first year and kind of watch what goes on, whatever team he goes to. Because if he does go in the back end of the first round, he might be going to a team that already has a starting quarterback and was probably in the playoffs last year, unless there's some trades involved. So maybe this is going to be for the best for Michael Penix there, that he goes to a contender on the back end of round 1 of the draft.
He could go to a team like Seattle and maybe start right away. And, we've heard all the rumors about, Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh. Well, if he doesn't, and Pittsburgh drafting 20th, maybe they draft him. And I just think that he's in a good situation. I think he's got a chance to start. We'll see. All right, speaking about the draft, I do want to talk about the LSU guys and the wide receivers and the rise of Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas the past few weeks, especially Thomas, who I saw as kind of a fringe bottom first round, maybe early second round guy. I'm seeing him as high in some places. Some mock drafts now is 15. A lot of mock drafts have him conveniently going to Cincinnati to play with Joe Burrow, which I think is a possibility as well. But Brian Thomas kind of shooting up. Yeah,
and it was the 40 time that definitely helped him. Listen, if you want to compete at the combine because you feel like you need help move on draft, go for it. If you don't want to compete at the combine, like, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May, wait till your pro day, that is fine also. Okay. There's no wrong answer with not competing at the combine. But Brian Thomas thought he needed to be there, and he ran a blazing 40, not as fast as Xavier Worthy of Texas, who broke the combine record, but he had a really strong 40 time. He had a great season this year in the purple and gold. He is a first-round wide receiver, and he put it all together this season, and it paid off for him. And you know what? He's going to go to pro day, which is in about 3 weeks at LSU, and he's going to have his quarterback there, and every big-time scout in the NFL is going to be there because they want to see Jaden in action. So it's going to be another chance for Brian Thomas to show his chops, and he might even move up even further in the teens come the end of the month.
And Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase both showed that, hey, it wasn't just Joe Burrow that made them as good as they are now. Obviously, Jamar is with Joe again, but those two receivers kind of did it on their own, and I think the same goes for Nabers and Thomas. As good as Jaden Daniels was this year, and the improvement that he made, maybe part of Jaden Daniels' improvement is because of guys like Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas, obviously.
No, and also, Mason Taylor is going to love life this coming season, the tight end, with Garrett Nussmeier in there, because there was no need for Mason Taylor this past season with Jaden Daniels, because if Daniels didn't like his first or second read, he ran off,
right,
and he didn't use the tight end at all. Jaden produced his own plays. The deep threat was there with Malik Nabers and Thomas. But also, you can see, you could tell that Garrett Nussmeier loves those weapons. Also, he only got Nabers for a small period of time in that game against Wisconsin. But the weapons they have at LSU, that's why I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to succeed this year, because Kyron Lacey's still back, and you got
right.
JT Daniels and Xavier Thomas, the transfers coming in. You still got Chris Hilton, you got Aaron Anderson, Sheldon Sampson. So you got a lot of weapons. So the LSU offense. It has the receivers and they got the quarterbacks. This is gonna be like just a trend that's gonna keep going here. We always talk about DBU, and DBU's kind of lost some of its mojo at LSU, but it's definitely wide receiver U right now in Baton Rouge.
Man, they're gonna play some more 49-47 games. They've got to find a way to play better defense. It's really hard to watch, but maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Who knows? All right, we're going to move on because I want to talk about Caitlin Clark. We're getting close to the end. I want to run about another 6-7 minutes here on the show. I want to get your thoughts on Caitlin Clark. Obviously, controversial topic here in South Louisiana, maybe all of Louisiana, because now all I've been hearing about the last 3 weeks, and then obviously yesterday, was Caitlin Clark, and she has now surpassed Pistol Pete Maravich, but why are we talking about her surpassing Pistol Pete, Garland? Because, it's a different time. It's a different era. As Michael Wilkes says, way to go. I guess he's talking about Caitlin Clark. But I just want to get your thoughts on her. And do you put an asterisk by the record? Does the record just, it is what it is? It's a different time. It's like other records. I mean, what do you think?
Well, when you look at the record book, it's separate. So yes, Caitlin Clark is the highest scoring, college basketball of all time, but the records are separated for men and women, the NCAA. Okay. This is kind of, I think, more of a media creation. Okay. Of just getting excited, pumping up Caitlin Clark. Listen, she's one of the greatest of all time. In college basketball, women's college basketball. She's broken every record points wise. But Pete Maravich is in the men's game. He's the number one of all. He'll probably remain number one of all time in the men's game. Okay, Caitlin is in the women's game. They're separate. They're not. It's two separate record books. This is not. It's such a hot button topic, but can we just recognize that both are fantastic, both records? And when you get to the record book 30, 40 years from now, when I look at the men's records, it's going to be Pete Maravich number one. And you look at the women, it'll be Caitlin Clark. They're not in the same record books. Okay. This is something that we've just all of a sudden, it came out of nowhere in the last month. They're all of a sudden, they went for one record, and now she's going for Pete Maravich's record. And I never thought of it like that. I thought that she was the greatest scorer in women's history, and Pete Maravich is in men's history, and they're two separate games.
Well, I would say this. I know what it sounds like if you were just watching me and to see what I think. I think this. As much as I don't like it because I'm an LSU guy and I went to LSU and I grew up loving Pistol Pete and all those things, it is what it is. It's the record. It is the NCAA overall record, and it is a different time. We're going to get to something in my extra point, and I don't usually have guests on. I never had a guest on from my extra point before, but we're going to do that today because I want to get your thoughts real quickly before we go off the air. But if you see her numbers there, 3,685 career points to pass Pistol Pete's record. A 54-year-old record is kind of crazy. But let's get to the extra point because, again, I think, look, it is what it is. It's like I talked about earlier. The NFL used to play 12 games, and they played 14 games. Then they played 16 games, and they played 18. When O.J. Simpson's record was beaten by Eric Dickerson, no one was complaining, right? And, I mean, when Calvin Johnson was breaking receiving records and he was playing 16 games compared to old records, no one's complaining. When people are breaking records that are 18 game done in an 18 game season, they're not going to complain about that. So it is what it is. She is the record holder. But I will say this, and here's my extra point segment. If you put her numbers, if you use the rules that they used back in 1967 to 1970, Caitlin Clark would have 1,192 points fewer because you would have had to wipe out her freshman season because Pistol Pete couldn't play in his freshman season back then. The college players were not allowed to play their freshman season, and there was no three-point line. So if you take away her freshman season and you make all those three-pointers a two-pointer, she's actually got 2,493 points, which wouldn't be a record, Garland Gillen.
Yo, you're making all valid points. What Pete Maravich did, I mean, will never be equaled, for the time. The average 44 points a game, play only 3 seasons with no three-point line is absolutely amazing. My first job out of college was in Monroe. And I don't know if you remember the name of Donald Foyle, but he wound up playing in the NBA. He played at Colgate. He had the NCAA blocks record for a period of time. When I got to Monroe, I was covering ULM basketball. They had a guy named Voracek Mirda who broke Donald Foyle's record. Well, Voracek played 4 years. Donald Foyle played 3 years. So Donald Foyle actually came out, was very vocal that it's different because I only played 3 years and 4. But if you go look at the record book, it doesn't say 3 years or 4 years. Voracek Mirda broke the record, former Warhawk player. So that I got into these debates early on in my career working in television. And Caitlin Clark, what she did, as I said before, no doubt impressive. But I don't personally, I don't think of it, that way. That I think that Caitlin, broke the record for women's basketball, and then Pete has it for men's. Both fantastic records. I just think they're separate record books. Like I said, when you're going to pull in the NCAA records for the men's game, it's not going to have Caitlin Clark at the top. Okay, the men's game and the women's game are separate entities when it comes to the NCAA record book. So, I know everybody gets so excited about, fired about these things. I mean,
of course we do. We're passionate about this stuff. And, I will say this: I really believe that if Pistol Pete were alive today, he wouldn't be talking about his record at all. He would have been there probably, and he would have been hugging her and giving her congratulations. Don says he 100% agrees with you. I just think he would be there. I think he would love this. I don't think he would care about it at all. I really don't.
No, hey, it's the off season in the NFL.
But I care about it, by the way.
And we no one can be, there's got to be debate. Everybody's got to get fired about something, and this is the one. I mean, next week we'll move on to something else. Yep. This is the hot button topic right now. I think I saw that Pete Maravich's son, I think he told the Advocate a month or so ago the same thing that I'm kind of talking about, is that it's separate, it's separate leagues, or separate, records. But hey, Caitlin Clark is one of the greatest. Pete Maravich is one of the greatest. So I'll stand right there and keep it on that.
Angel
on that
Reese is one of the greatest. By the way, I got to ask, when you were working in Northeast Louisiana, did you call it Monroe or did you call it Monroe?
Monroe.
That's
Monroe.
Yeah, they don't like that up there. You got to call it Monroe.
And I also learned when up there, you don't call it Ville, you call it Vole. So
Right.
you're in Farmerville when you're up there.
Right.
So, my mother was from Monroe. So that was my first job. I worked at KNOE TV8. Jeff Duncan was there right before I got there. So I missed him when he was at the Monroe News Star. But it was my first gig. Leon Barmore was the head coach at Louisiana Tech. Luke McCown was a starting quarterback for Louisiana Tech. So I definitely, Andrew Whitworth was playing for West Monroe Rebels. So there was a lot going on at that time when I was in North Louisiana.
Man, you're old. I'm just gonna say that.
Yes, I am old. Yeah, I've been in television almost 24 years, so I've definitely seen some things.
Well, then we won't tell anyone that I've been in at the Times-Picayune for 33 years. So we'll skip that as we go on. Garland, thanks a lot for joining me, and I will see you later this week on the final bet, my friend.
Yes, indeed. We got
Thursday night,
I'll be
10:35.
10:35 on Thursday night. I'll definitely be cooking up some things. Probably talk a little combine. We'll mix it up though. We're not going to just talk football. I'll find something else to definitely get in the mix.
Can't wait to do it. Thank you, and I will see you on Thursday. Garland Gillen, everyone. And again, you see it up there with the extra point. It's just weird. Again, I don't take away from her record. Because it is a record. And even though it is two different things, look, I don't like it. Again, I'm a LSU guy. I'm a Pistol Pete guy. I don't think I would like it even if I weren't an LSU guy. But that being said, it is what it is. I don't, back in the day when Barry Bonds broke the record, I don't care what Barry Bonds did. Major League Baseball didn't do anything to stop Barry Bonds from doing what he was doing. Back in the day when Mark McGwire was doing what he was doing and Sammy Sosa was doing what he was doing. Major League Baseball didn't do anything to go stop them from doing it. Those guys kind of saved baseball. So they're the records. I don't put asterisks next to records. If you break a record, you break a record. Houston Astros. I can't stand the Houston Astros, okay? But they won the World Series. It shouldn't be taken away. They cheated. I mean, dude, you know what? If you went out there and found everyone that was cheating some kind of way, you know how many asterisks and records we'd have to take? Gabe says, let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. I've been screaming that since I was a kid. The fact that Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame is absurd. I know a lot of you disagree with me out there. So that's my long-winded way of getting around. Like, I think it's fun in this extra point. And you look at these numbers that I have on the screen, what she would have had. I don't think that her record is as impressive as what, and well, I don't not think. I know it's not. It's not as impressive as what Pistol Pete did. I mean, scoring, 50 points a game or just shy of 50 points a game? I mean, think about what Chris Jackson did back in the day at LSU. I mean, for those of you old enough, I was in my early 20s when Chris Jackson, who is now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, played at LSU. What he did there was some of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen in college basketball. I'm not old enough to remember Pistol Pete playing because he left LSU when I was 2 years old, or almost 2 years old. But so his record, what he did was more impressive, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Caitlin Clark has the record, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's the extra point for today, and that's how we're going to wrap up the show. I hope you people have enjoyed, my friends. I hope my friends out there have enjoyed what we've done these first two new shows. This is what we're trying to do. So when I say come in right now and get in on the ground floor on the advertising part of this, if you want to sponsor our show, jderry@theadvocate.com, now's the time to get in on this. I'm telling you, this thing's going to take off. And Gabe's putting together shorts, little cutout clips for the show. I'm going to start doing daily shorts at some point in the very near future, kind of just talking about putting it in a minute. Everything we do here on the show, I'm going to try to put it together in a minute, even when we don't do shows, my thoughts of what that day might be. That's coming up soon. So all these things are things you can sponsor. We want you to be a part of this. Derry at theadvocate.com. Talk to me. I want to hear from you. That is going to wrap it up for this first Monday of March. I want to thank today's guest, Garland Gillen. We hope you can join us for our next show on Wednesday. I'm not sure we're going to have two guests. I'm not sure who the second guest is yet, but I know that Spencer the Guru is coming on for our new Fantasy Roundup show, which we used to do on Tuesdays by itself. It's now going to be on Dattitude every Wednesday. So Spencer's going to come on. Gabe's going to come on sometimes. I don't know if he's going to come on this Wednesday or not, but Gabe's back in the green room helping me out greatly. We thank Gabe Henderson for being a part of this and helping out and cutting clips. But Spencer will be on Wednesday, and we'll have another guest because we're going to be talking some Pelicans. It's not going to be all Saints all the time. We're going to try to become a little bit more diverse as we go along and get more guests from around the spectrum. So we're going to be talking Pels. We're going to be talking fantasy. I'd like to talk a little bit maybe about LSU baseball coming up Wednesday. And if we have a Saints note to pass along, we'll talk about that and whatever the news is of the day. That'll be fun as well. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And then you can also find the replay of the show at NOLA.com/sports. What do you think? You think that's enough? I think it's enough. All right, we'll see you on Wednesday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.